We're not giving a nuclear weapon to terrorist thugs, and we're knocking the hell out of them. Their navy's gone, their air force is gone, their leaders are gone, their anti-aircraft is gone. Everything's gone, and had been made at the highest levels of the United States government, after months of diplomatic failure, after years of warnings ignored, after every other option had been exhausted. The order came down. The bombers would fly. Surgical strike. This was not a warning shot. This was a deliberate, calculated campaign to permanently eliminate Iran's ability to threaten the region with ballistic missiles. The planners had spent weeks identifying every missile storage facility, every launch site, every hardened bunker. The targets were mapped, the weapons selected, the routes calculated down to the minute. For Station Fairford in the United Kingdom, B-52H Stratofortress bombers were being prepared for a combat mission to destroy Iranian missile positions. RAF Fairford is one of the few airfields in Europe capable of supporting B-52 operations. Its runways are long enough, its infrastructure strong enough, and its location strategic enough to serve as a forward operating base for America's most powerful conventional bombers. The British government had given its approval. On March 20th, the British government approved the use of British-based U.S. facilities, including Royal Air Force Station Fairford and Diego Garcia, for combat operations. The base had been quietly activated days before. Additional ground crews had arrived, spare parts had been pre-positioned, fuel trucks ran in continuous rotation, topping off tanks, checking pressures, preparing for an operational tempo that would demand perfection from every ground crew member on the flight line. The air around the base smelled of jet fuel and hydraulic fluid. The noise was constant, engines running, vehicles moving, crews shouting over the roar of ground power units. This was a base at war, organized chaos driven by a single purpose: get the aircraft airborne, loaded, and on target. The work around the bombers was constant and detailed. Mechanics swarmed the 8 Pratt & Whitney TF-33 turbofan engines on each aircraft. They opened the engine cowling panels and inspected the turbine blades for cracks or foreign object damage. Each TF-33 engine produces approximately 17,000 pounds of thrust. The B-52H carries 8 of them, 4 pods of 2, mounted under the swept wings. At maximum gross weight, all 8 engines working together generate enough power to lift over 500,000 pounds off the ground. But that power depends entirely on the health of every single turbine blade inside every single engine. The mechanics worked methodically, using borescopes to peer deep inside the engine cores where no naked eye could reach. They checked oil levels, inspected fuel lines for cracks, tested the ignition systems, and verified the thrust reverser mechanisms. Nothing was assumed. Everything was confirmed. A single engine failure over hostile airspace could complicate the mission. 2 failures could be catastrophic. The mechanics understood the stakes. They worked with the focused precision of professionals who knew that somewhere over Iran, those engines would need to perform without question. Ground crews drove hydraulic munitions loaders known as MJ-1 jammer trucks up to the aircraft carrying ordnance. The B-52H can carry up to 70,000 pounds of mixed weapons. For this mission, the primary munitions were 2,000-pound Mark 84 general-purpose bombs, each one about 12 feet long, and AGM-86C conventional air-launched cruise missiles weighing approximately 3,150 pounds each, capable of striking hardened targets from a standoff range of over 600 miles. Guided bombs such as the GBU-31 JDAM, a 2,000-pound GPS-guided weapon, were also loaded for precision strikes on missile storage bunkers. The weapons loading process is slow, deliberate, and unforgiving of mistakes. Each bomb and missile carries enough explosive power to level a city block. The armorers handled them with a combination of mechanical precision and deep respect for the destructive force they were securing to the aircraft. The bombs and missiles were hoisted one at a time onto the external wing pylons and into the internal bomb bay, where they were locked onto the common strategic rotary launcher. Every weapon was checked twice. The electrical connections were verified, the fusing systems were inspected, the safety pins were counted and logged. Nothing went on the aircraft unless it was confirmed ready. The rotary launcher is the core of the B-52's internal weapons delivery system. It is a cylindrical drum mounted inside the bomb bay that holds up to 8 cruise missiles or bombs. When the weapons officer commands a release, the drum rotates to bring the next weapon into the drop position, allowing the aircraft to release its ordnance in sequence without opening and closing the bomb bay doors between each drop. This system is what makes the B-52 so extraordinarily lethal in a sustained strike role. A single aircraft in a single pass over a target can deliver a continuous stream of precision-guided weapons on multiple aim points in rapid succession. The enemy has no time to respond between impacts. The destruction is immediate and overwhelming. The ground crew tested the rotary launcher mechanism, spinning it through its full rotation, confirming that each weapon station locked and released properly, and verified the electrical connections between the launcher and the aircraft's fire control system. Every test was logged, every result was confirmed before the aircraft was declared mission ready. While the aircraft was being prepared on the flight line, the 5-man crew was also getting ready. The flight to the target area in Iran would take approximately 4 hours and 30 minutes one way. In the crew room, the pilots tested their oxygen masks, checking the seal against their faces, testing the regulator for proper flow, and confirming the intercom connection. They packed their personal flight bags with water, food, maps, checklists, and anything else needed for a mission lasting many hours. These men had trained for this moment for years. They had flown simulated combat missions hundreds of times. They had studied Iranian air defenses, missile positions, and target layouts until the information was embedded in memory. But training is never the same as the real thing. In the quiet moments before departure, each crew member understood exactly what they were about to do, and exactly what was at stake if anything went wrong. In the cockpit, the pilot and co-pilot strapped into their side-by-side ejection seats on the upper deck and began the pre-flight checklist. They entered the mission coordinates into the navigation system, programming the waypoints from RAF Fairford to the target area in Iran and the return route. Every instrument was checked: altimeters, airspeed indicators, engine gauges, fuel quantity, communications radios, and the terrain-following radar. Below the cockpit on the lower deck, the navigator and the radar navigator took their seats side by side. The navigator sat on the right, responsible for the aircraft's route, timing, and ensuring the bomber arrived at every waypoint and the target on schedule. He was essentially the human GPS of the aircraft, constantly cross-referencing the navigation systems, telling the pilots to speed up, slow down, or adjust heading. The radar navigator sat on the left. He was the bombardier. His job was to identify the targets using the offensive avionics system, manage the targeting pods, select the correct weapons for each target, and release the ordnance at the precise moment to achieve maximum accuracy. He worked across 4 screens simultaneously, monitoring radar returns, weapon status, target coordinates, and delivery parameters. When the aircraft was fully loaded and all systems checked, the order to depart was given. The B-52 taxied out slowly to the runway at RAF Fairford, lined up on the center line, and the pilots pushed all 8 throttles forward. The heavy bomber accelerated down the runway, used most of its length under the weight of a full bomb load and fuel, and lifted off into the sky. There is something primal about watching a B-52 take off fully loaded. The aircraft weighs close to 500,000 pounds at maximum gross weight. It accelerates slowly, almost reluctantly, as if gravity itself is trying to hold it back. The engines scream at full power. The airframe shudders, and then, at the last possible moment, the wings flex upward, and the massive aircraft pulls itself into the sky with a grace that seems impossible for something so large. 2 B-52s flew the mission together. They headed southeast across Europe and the Mediterranean, directly toward Iran. When they reached the target area, the radar navigator on the lower deck took control of the weapons delivery. He confirmed the target coordinates on his screens, verified the weapon selection, and commanded the bomb bay doors to open. The rotary launcher inside the bay began spinning, bringing each weapon to the release position. Bombs and missiles dropped from the bay one after another in rapid sequence, falling toward the Iranian missile positions below. Below them, the targets that had been identified, mapped, and planned against for weeks were about to cease to exist. The missile storage bunkers, the launch infrastructure, the hardened facilities that had taken years and billions of dollars to construct, all of it was about to become rubble. The radar navigator monitored each release, confirming separation and tracking the weapons to impact. One by one, the targets were destroyed. The mission that had been planned with such precision was executing exactly as designed. Once the full payload was expended, the bomb bay doors closed and the aircraft turned away from the target area. The 2 B-52s followed the planned return route. Instead of flying directly back to the UK, they diverted to Sofia Airport in Bulgaria for a refueling stop. Although the B-52's fuel tanks held enough to make it back to Britain without stopping, the mission plan called for the Bulgaria stop as a precaution and to maintain operational flexibility. On landing at Fairford, the drag parachute deployed from the tail of each aircraft, a large chute that billowed out behind the bomber, rapidly reducing speed on the runway and shortening the rollout distance.
The crews climbed down from their aircraft. They had taken off from England, flown across the Mediterranean, struck targets deep inside Iran, and returned safely. The mission was complete. Meanwhile, at an American B-52 base in the United States, another crew received a rapid briefing. An additional bomber needed to be ferried across the Atlantic to RAF Fairford to continue the strike operations. The pilots reviewed the mission